Hey everyone, Adam here, hope you're doing well. In this video I want to show you how I recorded a Cajon drum box. Now Cajons are an absolute staple in acoustic music, particularly acoustic country. However, they're not always the easiest instruments to record and get a great sound of. But last week I had one of my clients, Matt Hodges, who is an acoustic country artist, turned up to the studio for his session with a Cajon and we recorded it and it sounded incredible. So I wanted to talk you through how I did that, how I mic'd it up and the process that was involved, so that if you use a Cajon or you plan on using a Cajon for your music in the future, this will help you get the best sound you possibly can. Now traditionally, Cajons are not a particularly easy instrument to get a great sound of. The problem with 90% of them is that they can be quite cheap and flimsy, they can rattle a lot, and you don't get great separation between the kick and the snare parts, the lower and the upper. However, that wasn't the case with the Cajon that Matt brought. Now, it might sound like a cliche and it might not be what you really want to hear, but I cannot stress the importance enough of getting the sound right at source. The reason that most Cajons don't sound great in the recording is because they just don't sound great. They're rattly, they don't get the great separation, it might have been quite cheap and it might just be old or it might need some TLC. However, the one that Matt brought me was custom made. He designed this Cajon himself and he had a guy over here in the UK called Gary Pearson, who owns Warrior Percussion, manufacture it to his specifications. Now, what's different about this Cajon is that it is made from thick layers of premium wood. I can't remember exactly what wood it was made out of, probably maple or birch. So it's heavy. It was also really, really deep. That allowed the low end to develop and it gave a really, really deep sort of bass tone to it. There were also two ports on the back, two rear ports that helped that low end develop and helped you to capture it. There was also inside of the Cajon a shelf which Matt designed because he wanted that separation between the kick and the snare portions. So you really do get that great separation. So the starting point for a great Cajon recording needs to be a great Cajon in itself. If the one that you have bought is quite cheap and rattly, then the chances are it's not going to sound great on the actual recording. So it's worth investing, getting a custom made one or at least getting a high quality one to get a great recording. If this is going to become a staple in your music, it is worth that investment, I promise you. So when it came to micing the Cajon up, my starting point was two microphones, one at the back, one at the front. For both of these, I used the Slate VMS. So I was using the ML1 microphone at the back, that is the large diaphragm condenser, and at the front I was using the ML2 small diaphragm. At the back, the aim was to capture the biggest, roundest, deepest low end that I could. So I played about with some different mic positions, some different distances, and just settled on a position that I was happy I was getting that full, warm, deep low end. The front mic was more getting the snare portion, although there were some nice lows coming through as well. But what I was really looking for was a mic position that really caught the crack of the snare. Now in the Cajon, Matt also had a pickup, just kind of like a piezo pickup that connects via a jack. I also connected that because I thought that might be useful in the mix. And I also put a room mic up. So this was just a U87, just a Neumann U87 mic. It was about 10 feet back in the room. The room was quite nice. It was quite a big room. The ceilings were fairly high. So it managed to capture some nice room space and just add a little bit of ambience to the recording. Let's have a look at what I did once these tracks were actually in my DAW. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got 4 tracks from the Cajon. So that's the back, the front. We've also got one from the jack socket. This was the pickup inside the Cajon. And then we've also got the U87 that I set up in the room. So let's start with the rear mic. So for this, I used the Slate ML1, which is the virtual mic system. And this is what I put on it. So I've got a U47 mic going into a Neve 1073, then into a Neve virtual channel. So the reason that I chose the 47 is because it really, really helps the low end kind of bloom and blossom. It's so round, so warm, and it just really, really helps those deep lows come through. The Neve 1073 is a classic preamp. I'm driving it almost to halfway. Again, that just adds some nice saturation. And then the console as well, I've chosen the Neve because it just has really, really nice low end that I really, really like. Moving to the front, so this was the ML2 mic from Slate. For this, I just went with a 57. So this is a Shure SM57. It's the vintage model. I chose the vintage model because it had smoother mids than the modern one. I do own a SM57, which I could have used quite easily, but I like the flexibility that the Slate mic gives me. You know, I can go through different mic models and choose the one that best fits. That's then going into a Neve 1073, again into a channel, but then I've got this EQ, which is just adding some top and bottom. I really wanted the snare to poke out, so I'm adding 7.5K, I'm adding at about 5.5 decibels. That helps the snare portion poke out a little bit more. I also noticed that there was some really nice tight low end coming from this mic as well, so I helped that out a little bit, about 140 hertz. Just boosted that by about 5 dB as well. Onto the pickup. So what I found from this is that it wasn't that useful on its own, but what it did capture was some really, really nice mid-range and top. Now, in the mix, I'll probably EQ this very, very heavily. At the minute, I'm adding some 7.5K, I'm adding 6 dB just to help the snare pop through. But what I like about this is that I'll be able to really smash the top end. I'll be able to really, really boost the hell out of it with EQ. And then I can just blend that in as much as it's needed. If I'm not getting enough top end from the snare on the 57, well then I can just boost the hell out of this and just blend it into taste. The U87 that's in the room, I don't have anything on. It sounded great as it was. But what I did do, if I move the mic, is it went through this Neve 1073 preamp, which you can see I've got at the top. And then I also put it into an 1176, which are these black units here. These are the Warm Audio 1176. I had it on the Dr. Pepper setting. So that's the attack at 10 o'clock, the release at 2 o'clock. And I was getting not a lot of gain reduction, to be honest, probably just somewhere around 1 to 2. But it just kind of helped tighten the sound a little bit. What I did do with the U87 room mic, though, was send it to a reverb. Now, the reason that I sent this to a reverb is because I wanted the room sound to be a little bit bigger than what it was. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have a bigger room to put the Cajon in, so my only option was to send the room mic to a reverb. What that does is it extends the size of the room. I didn't want to put reverb on the close mics because that often sounds unnatural. It's like putting a reverb on a close mic snare. It just sounds like a snare with reverb on it, whereas what I actually want is the Cajon to sound like it's in a bigger room. The reverb that I'm using is by Liquid Sonics, fantastic reverb plugin, and it's a 480 Lexicon reverb, and it's on the chamber setting. However, the decay time I've got is fairly short. It's only 745 milliseconds. Cajons are these small drum boxes. It's in an acoustic song. It's not really realistic. It sounded a bit weird to have this huge, massive reverb. So I've kept it fairly short, but by sending this, it just helps. It just helps really kind of make it sound like it was in a bigger room, and I can blend this in to taste as and where I need it. So what I'll do now is I will play you a chunk of this, and you can hear how it sounds for yourself. So as you can hear, the lows are incredible. They're so deep, they're so tight and controlled. There's plenty of crack coming through from the snare, but there's also plenty of room to boost that a little bit more when I come to the mix. If I want it to come through a little bit more, I can use this track here, the pickup, and I can get some more top end from that. The U87 in the room, together with the reverb that it's going to, again, just adds some really nice ambience. And again, when it comes to the mix, I can either dial that in, or I can bring it right back if I want a drier and a tighter sound. So I hope that has been useful. I hope I've inspired you to have a go at recording Cajon and maybe integrate it into your music, because it is a really, really fun instrument to play and also a fun instrument to mic up and record if you've got a good one. Any questions, feel free to drop a comment, drop me a DM. I would love to speak to you. I'll see you soon.